had to make sure we did first was get up the mobile network. And I think that was the number one priority for us, to make sure that we got the network up in the high priority zones in terms of all the western parishes where they had zero to no communications. And I think happy to say that we were probably the first one to have gotten up coverage in those areas with some bit of innovation. The next portion of the work is obviously the transmission work that we have to do, restoration of the fibers to the mobile sites, restoration of direct fibers to the B2B community, and restoration of the distribution fibers to the various communities. Now, if you look at this, you see a number of red X's on this map. Those were where we had suffered major damage in terms of the transmission network, which is terrestrial. We hadn't gotten as much damage on the subsea. However, there was one critical point of the subsea landing station which was severely impacted, and that was in Black River, where the hurricane landed first. Black River, we're happy to say, is on its way up. Should be up with another 7 to 10 days in terms of getting Black River as a ring so that the rest of the ring surrounding the island is fully connected.
Mr. Price is saying, and I understand that Black River would be your largest population, possibly to where the hurricane made center landfall.
Yes.
But when you say it, you have to be careful, because others listening on, you have to put that in context, why you make that statement.
No, why I made that statement.
We know what brings us here, you know.
Yes.
And I fully accept and understand your point, but I have to be very careful what others may be hearing.
Okay, understood.
And also when you said terrestrial, or what word did you use?
Terrestrial.
Yeah, can you expand on that?
Okay,
because
sure.
A lot of people are listening
and not understanding.
already I've gotten 2 calls.
Okay, cool, no problem. All right, the terrestrial transport routes are the cables that run on the island. These are the ones that are generally either carried underground, which transport the internet right across the island to the various distribution points. The subsea is the cables that we run within the sea, right? So it lands at a couple landing stations. Obviously, that's where we get our internet from, coming offshore, coming into the island. So these are very critical in terms of the distribution of the network right across the length and breadth of the country. What we're referring to particularly in Black River has one of our 7 landing stations there, right? And because of the impact that happened there and the storm surge, we sustained some significant damage there that we've already started the process of restoring, and that will fully complete the entire leg of our subsea to make sure that we can start the process of distributing the network across the western part of the island to businesses, consumers, as such. Now, where were we pre-storm? Pre-storm, from the perspective of the network, we were down to a low of 10% customer connectivity. We had just 20% of our nodes online based on power issues that were encountered in terms of some of these nodes being isolated because of various fiber breaks across the island. We're happy to say that we have made significant progress since we now have 62% of our customers back online and 82% of our nodes up. So from a node is where we distribute the internet across to each of our customers across various communities. So we now have 80% of that. So the reality now, the hard work and hard heavy lifting goes into us rebuilding now the distribution to the customers. Now, for this purpose, we have sort of divided the country into the 3 zones, really mirroring the counties. Zone 1, we are doing quite well in there because of obviously the speed of the ability, and because of the fact that there wasn't significant damage there, we have a lot of customers back online. Zone 2 has some of our customers online, but I'll go through the numbers as we go through. And then Zone 3, in areas like Hanover, we are fully hard down at this present point in time. If we look at this spread across the parishes, We're 93% up in Kingston and St. Andrew. St. Catherine, we are 87% up in terms of customers. Clarendon, 69%. St. Elizabeth, we managed to get that up to 40, obviously having gotten Savlamar back up online. Hanover, we're still hard down, and obviously waiting on JPS pool routes to get that piece done. St. Anne, we're now at 43%. St. James is where we have redirected most of our forces to make sure that we get the second city back online for commerce, BPOs, etc. So that work is continuing in earnest, and we'll see some significant progress over the next 4 to 5 days in terms of us following right behind GPS. St. Mary, we're at 27%. St. Thomas, we're back up to 87% on fixed customers back online. Trelawney, we're at 24%, and Westmoreland at 3%, really mostly isolated in Negril and those areas. So there's a lot of work once we get the Black River landing station back up in order to start getting that distribution across the island. Now, Zone 1 overall, with St. Thomas, St. Andrew, Portland. No, I haven't done this. Oh, sorry. Zone 1, St. Thomas, St. Andrew, Portland, St. Catherine, we are 89% up, especially with customers with commercial power. Over this week to end of month, we're working in several communities just to make sure that we bring that percentage into the high 90s. St. Thomas, 11 miles, Duckenfield, Hampton, Bransbury, Winchester, Trinityville, Georgia, Wilmington. Work has started in those communities. St. Andrew, Lawrence Tavern, particularly Guava Ridge, Green Valley, Mount Ogley, Erie. Still waiting on some work. Obviously, there's some road challenges, Irish Town, those areas, and up by Red Light, and those places that we're trying to get access properly with. Portland, working through Ferry Hill, Long Bay, Woodstock, Hector's River, Zion Hill, and St. Catherine working in Browns Hall, Point Hill, Gibraltar, Above Rocks, Redwood, and Lucky Valley. And this work is continuing as we speak to make sure that we get Zone 1 particularly into the high 90s over the next week. Now, within Zone 2, this is where the rubber starts to hit the road. We're about 45% of our customers back online. Where we're working there, St. Mary, Port Maria, Lodge, Mile End, Islington, Lebanon, Top End, Clonmel, Lewis Store. In Clarendon, working in Cave Valley, Frankfield, Thompsontown, and Osborne Store. St. Anne, working in Lodge right now. And then in St. James, working on Montego Bay West Village. Obviously, we know the significant damage that has happened there. Norwood, Hendon, Flankers, Bogue Industrial Estate, Fairview, and also Freeport to bring up the rest of customers there. So work is continuing in earnest this week, and we expect some percentages to be really, really up here. Zone 1 is particularly going to be heavily dependent on the Jamaica Public Service in terms of rebuilding those pool routes. Obviously, I know Minister Vaz will speak to Parliament a little later on just some announcements around that. Just understand we are tethered at the belt to JPS. As soon as JPS brings up their primary and secondary power, then we're allowed to attach the poles and start our distribution. So we are definitely following them, and we will be increasing our teams. Now, obviously, what you see here is just currently some of our outside plant personnel or field service operations. These amounts, as soon as we know JPS has started the move in terms of bringing additional line workers, we can match them in terms of getting additional field service operations to match them. So those triggers are being pulled this week to hopefully have them land next week, and then we start the full-scale rollout to bring these restoration levels up to a good level. Now, on the mobile network, pre-storm, we had gone down to 22% of sites online. And if you understand what happens in the hurricane, radios move, radios shift, all these things. We had challenges with some of the power. Some generators were inundated with water, those kind of things, which has us rethinking even some of the things that we have to do in terms of even raising platforms for equipment because of the kind of storm surge that we experienced. We are now back up to 71% of our mobile sites now back online. We will be up to 100% by the end of January, and we're going to aim towards the high 90s by Christmas to make sure that as many communities as possible have service. We have 95% here in terms of the level of mobile traffic from pre-hurricane. I have to say that we're just under the 100% mark already. So all customers are now pretty much reflected on our network and are active and trafficking from our perspective. So the mobile network is moving in good speed. We have about 34 towers which were on the ground by the end of the storm. Those we are working to restore. 50% of them will be reconstructed by the end of November, and the remaining will be completed by the end of December. So I think we're well on our way on this side in terms of the mobile network to get that up and running. What we were able to do within a day and a half of the hurricane, we've done a couple of collaborations, and we must salute Starlink, who has been a great partner to us. Knowing that we had a Category 5, we started the conversation with them around having direct-to-cell communications. That proved to be very helpful in the initial days after the storm, so that persons could at least have the ability to text message each other from that perspective. I think it was at the height of day 2, day 3 after the hurricane, we had somewhere in the region of 200,000 customers on it. But as we continue to improve the mobile coverage, we still have about 40,000 customers still actively using it. So it's still proving its worth and use for ourselves. Now, the other piece of the puzzle that we started during the restoration process, because of the amount of breaks of the fiber to mobile sites, because of trees and all these kind of things, what we did was we also deepened the partnership with Starlink and used them to allow us to have backhaul. And what we mean by backhaul, that's what brings the transmission signal from the cell site back to the core in order for people to be able to make calls, access data, etc. Now, we have that now rolled out on about 147 sites. That will be increased and doubled by the end of the year. And that will remain also a part of our backup arsenal in case anything like this happens again in the future. We're going to continue to roll out and deepen that partnership, but it will be critical for us to rebuild all of those fiber routes back to each of those cell sites. The other thing that we've done, which especially in this time, when you don't have the kind of fixed infrastructure in the West, what we've been able to is manage the kind of traffic levels on the mobile sites by allowing customers the ability to use voice over Wi-Fi. Voice over Wi-Fi is a standard that we utilize whereby our customers can also utilize making calls by attaching to any Wi-Fi possible right across the country. So if our coverage is not up, they're able to connect to Starlink device or another competitor who is up and be able to actually make calls via Wi-Fi to complete those messages. So those are some of the things that we did in that space. This just shows you the direct-to-cell, Flow Essential. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So voice over Wi-Fi for the damaged parishes for Jamaica, are you saying that that could possibly be almost 100%?
Of everybody being able to use that?
If you have access to Wi-Fi, as you indicated through whatever 1, 2, 3 different, even your competitors' Wi-Fi, you indicated nicely.
Correct.
You would be able to be, Jamaica would be able to be at 100%. communication?
I'm saying yes, we'll be able to be at 100% communication.
I just want to hear you say it.
Yeah, definitely.
I understood that.
Because they have the ability to use their calls on any Wi-Fi possible. Right? So we've made sure to put those things in place. Yeah, man. Thank you very much.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Sure.
Colleagues. I have a different set of questions for Flo.
Sure, sir.
I look at your restoration, and let's say I am not impressed. But beyond that, I have a challenge with your billing cycle. For those of your customers who don't have your service, you continue to bill them, and if they don't pay, they are disconnected. I believe it is time that the Consumers Affairs Commission and perhaps the Integrity Commission take a look at your billing methodology. And I can use myself as a test case. I have been out of internet at home now going a month. I am told that you don't have stock because you're waiting on modem and all that sort of stuff. But the bill come. And so I refuse to pay it because I cannot continue to subscribe to a service that I don't have. And I'm very strong on it because I'm sure I'm not the only customer and user of your service that has this challenge. So I would love to know, one, what is the methodology for your billing and how can that be remedied?
Testing. The methodology for billing, we have communicated and sent out communications to our customer base around what the plan is just post the hurricane. Now, what we're doing for those customers who are offline, billing will happen as per normal. But what we do at the end of the month, where every single month a customer is offline, they will be rebated. These rebates for the month of November have already been processed from my perspective in terms of getting to the customer bills, right? For those customers who are online, right, and have service, whenever they came from the position of being offline to being back online, we have initiated those rebates as well in order to hit those customer bills. For customers with mobile service particularly, what we've been able to do from that perspective is also do the same from the online versus offline perspective in order to rebate the portions of the bill for those customers as well. So we are doing the rebates, and we're doing it in a learning from Beryl. We're doing it in a much cleaner way. What we did after Beryl was we continued billing, yes, and we told customers once they get their services back, we rebate at the end. We're not doing that this time. This time, the bills will come out. We put the bill message out and saying, if you're out of service, you do not have to pay this bill, right? And then at the end of the month is when we do the full rebates in order to make sure that our customer is clear for the next billing cycle that comes out for the next month. So that's what we're doing right now. Particularly your instance now, I'm not sure if it was a pre-existing challenge with the modem that would flag it offline or online, but we'd have to investigate that separately. But this is not a widespread kind of issue that the country is facing.
Okay, now you may continue. Yeah, okay.
Thank you, Mr.
Okay,
Chairman.
member.
At what stage would a customer be notified via billing of those proposed rebates? And again, I don't want to personalize it, but I am a victim. And I just want to know that I have a voice here on behalf of the people. At what interval is those rebates pronounced on your billing?
Testing. The rebates are done monthly, and they're done in such a way that they complete by the 30th of the month. And once they complete by the 30th of the month, what that does is clears that customer bill for the next billing cycle. So that's what we've been doing. Now, we have sent out our customer comms to the email addresses that we have on the system for our customers out there. And that communication has gone out from as early as 5 or 6 days after the hurricane. You may want to check your spam address to see exactly if that message probably has hit there. But those messages have gone out to our entire base. That I can tell you.
I like to trust and verify. And I can share with you
Sure.
my last 2 bills. And there's no evidence of any rebate. It is the standard billing process that tells you.
But if you're saying 2 bills, then what you're saying is you're talking about an October bill.
I'm saying 2 months.
2 months.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good.
So this is a pre-existing problem prior to the hurricane.
Prior, during, and after.
Okay.
So what I am picking up from you, and I want to trust you,
Yeah.
is that there is a mechanism in place to roll out this rebate. But I'm saying how the customer knows, because it is not pronounced and they're billing.
So under normal circumstances, this is what we do, right? Once a customer has a challenge, right, and a ticket is reported that there is a particular outage ongoing, once that ticket is closed as restored, this is the normal practice that we have as a business. Once that ticket is closed as restored, as long as the outage lasts longer than 72 hours, the rebate is automatically calculated and put on the bill. That's our standard operating practice because we have to be fair to our customers. Now, in the scenario of this hurricane now, which presents a wider scale of rebates, we have managed that in a different way because of obviously accounting policies, etc., just to make sure it's a lot cleaner for our customers. But you have a pre-existing issue, so I would have to investigate that one particularly. And maybe there are some other customers like you, but I can assure you this is not a widespread issue.
As it relates to your stock.
Pardon me?
As it relates to your stock, where you don't have modem to replace the current one that are down, and I'm hearing that within another month and a half. Why are you out of stock?
For the obvious reasons of the current restoration activities, which are higher than normal over the past 2 to 3 weeks. We have ordered, and those are coming into Ireland. I mean, I think the key thing to say there is, obviously, this is more than we would have forecasted for in terms of normal working capital requirements in terms of the stock that we need to have in hand. But, as I'm saying, we have our orders in, we have modems on island, and those we will roll out as soon as we start restoration in some of the areas. But restoration continues every single day. We're clearing somewhere in the region of 1,000 tickets a day in terms of restoring back customers to service. In a lot of instances, just understand, in scenarios where roofs have been lost, in a lot of those instances, many of those modems are now useless. So we have been replacing quite a bit over time.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Member.
Sure.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In terms of your license, the regulatory framework that you operate under, in terms of new technologies, lessons learned from Beryl, lessons presently being learned, and the fact that you just said that once you have, whether with competing services, once you have with new technologies such as Starlink, once you have Wi-Fi, communication in the areas that have been destroyed, and yes, in the hills of the east, the Blue Mountain Range, you can offer mobile service, voice over Wi-Fi. We used to say voice over internet for those who are not trained.
Over fixed internet services, correct.
In terms of your license and the new technologies and the lessons we have learned, is there anything you would like to just share with us for us to understand our future in terms of facing these extreme crises?
I think from our perspective, as technology continues to evolve, there are new technologies that are coming on the horizon. Obviously, low orbit satellites are key in that piece of the puzzle, right? We know of Starlink, which is in the space. We know of Jeff Bezos' other outfit, which is started launching their satellites. This is going to be a part of the space moving forward, right? And obviously, from our perspective, we have chosen a path of collaborating with them from that perspective in terms of enhancing our services. Right now, as we speak, we have a partnership with Starlink, which is supporting many of our B2B customers for current redundancy, especially in Montego Bay and many other places for industry. We are using Starlink as redundancy for our customers as we bring them up. So that has been working quite a bit. Our teams have been going across the island and have been partnering with them in terms of the sale of Starlink devices in order to bring up businesses, not residential. This is particularly in the business environment. I think for us, we have been having also further conversations with Minister Vaz, the SMA, just around the whole idea of spectrum to bring next generation kind of mobile technology to the market. And that will come in due course in the very, very near future. So we're working hard at that. Once we get the spectrum assigned, and we draw our check for that, we hope to be off to the races from that perspective. I think what we have to also say to you is that we will now have to evolve in terms of how we build. I think it is a useful note, just the amount of poles that we see down across the country. Wireless will have to become much more of a part of our infrastructure moving forward, and I'm saying even for fixed, right? Because it's much easier to get back up at the end of the day. So that's going to be a part of our arsenal in the coming future. Obviously, we're discussing spectrum on that note to make sure that comes to light. But at the same time, we're also hardening our network. We are building an entire route right across the country from Maypen all the way around to Montego Bay underground. And that has saved us somewhat, I would say, over this hurricane particularly. Because if we didn't have many areas of that route underground, we'd have suffered a lot more damage and it would take a lot longer to come up. So we're continuing on that path to make sure that we build that out fully, to make sure that we do more areas across the island. What we've gotten the advantage of, obviously, is while we remove the copper technology, which has generally been underground, that has created a space for the ducts that exist there, which we can now start replacing that with fiber and bringing more fiber routes underground. So definitely, from a wireless perspective, mobile is going to lead. Fixed wireless access is going to be a part of the arsenal moving forward because it's much faster to get those things back up.
Just one question in relation to the answer you gave a while ago. In respect of your intention to look at advancement in terms of the technology and your applications and so on, how do you factor in the impact that would come with that in relation to pricing for the customers?
You want to answer? Go ahead, Jeff. Oh, sure, no problem. On the pricing, what I will say to you, these disasters come at significant cost to our business. Obviously, this is the second year in a row that we've experienced this. I think one of the key things for us is we are fortunate to have really put in place some robust parametric kind of insurance. And that has allowed us the ability to rebuild at a pace that's actually necessary. So we've made sure to make that necessary investment. I think from the perspective of pricing, it's going to be inflationary. I mean, I'm not saying that we're raising prices at this point in time, But obviously, these costs are quite significant if they happen. So which is why we have to start evolving in terms of more climate resilient kind of technology so that we don't have to face these kind of costs moving forward. Go ahead.
Morning, good morning, good morning. Just following up on Member Roberts' questions, which I find very pointed. So what you're saying, which is, we want to be very clear about that, because you know we are basically in the hurricane belt in terms of Jamaica, and they are expected, from all the forecasts we have seen about climate change, the expectation is that we'll have more and more extreme storm systems.
Correct.
And so you have said several things that I've taken note of. One, climate resilient technology, and that you're hardening your network across. You know, initially you're from Maypen to Montego Bay.
Yeah.
And then you mentioned the insurance. So the climate resilient technology would also be linked somehow to your insurance. I mean,
I think we have, what I would say to you, an envelope of capital that we are forecasting in terms of what we need to spend in order to do this. These things come at significant cost, and I think from our perspective, what we're trying to do is make sure that we have the right blend, right? Obviously, when you see, to get to the depths of the rural community, and I must say 100%, we are the only network that is really investing in spreading the coverage rurally. When you see where we started at the point of COVID, where we had 350,000 fiber customers, or fiber homes passed, and we're now at 770,000. Well, a little less right now because of the cables being down, right? But we have been the only one to have actually invested. To go very deeper rural, I mean, obviously there are conversations that we all have to have from a partnership perspective in terms of how do we see national broadband in the future? How do we get to these deeper rural communities, which are the highest cost to build because of population density? Which is why we bring up the kind of conversation about where we're looking towards in terms of fixed wireless access, in terms of making sure that it's a lot cheaper to get to these deeper rural areas at more affordable costs for the Jamaican pocket. You know, so that's a critical part of the analysis and thinking that we have.
So as I end then, so your direction is, as a company, your direction is that you are pursuing in the near future far greater climate resilient technology.
Definitely,
so that
definitely. That is where we are.
So that the distribution of your services across would not be severely impacted by
as much as it is now, because right now we are heavily dependent on aerial fiber. It's the cheapest to build. I know that Mr. Grant, who has probably addressed this committee already, would have said to you, in terms of moving electricity underground, it costs 6 to 7 times as much. Same costs would accrue to us. I think it is pointed that, and I can probably even move to just some of the actual kind of discussions that I want to have here as well. It's pointed that we probably need to have a national dialogue just in terms of how we build moving forward in partnership with the NWA, which I know you're seeing in a few minutes. We have partnered with them in a number of the roads that have been built thus far in terms of the creation of ducts. You know, the St. Thomas route. We are in those ducts as well. We have shared fiber with the NWA as well to complete the country's government network as well. So we have to work in partnership in terms of how we move forward, especially in the area of duct space and those things and infrastructure sharing from that perspective.
Stephen, I think now's a good time, if I could.
Sure.
Yes, yes.
So to Minister Robertson's question, right? So I just wanted to address that. So
From a licensing point of view, we would want our license to be technology agnostic, which is what we basically have now, with a few exceptions of some spectrum assignments which may have a narrow use, right? And as such, much of what we talked about, like with the Leos and the Starlinks, if you look at that regulatory space, Starlink is a licensee within the space, but not to provide mobile services. So from a legislative and policy position, we see a partnership. So if they were coming to direct to sell, we see them collaborating with a local partner, be it Digicel, Flow, or some other entity. We want the members to consider that framework going forward, because it's not a substitute for mobile service. Not the functionality, not the speed, not the ability, not the applications, but in emergency situations, it provides critical support for continued communication. So the member may have that on his mind. So they are complementary services. One does not replace the other. And we want the regulatory framework to recognize the local players and their respective investments for what they're delivering, but in partnership with other technologies as they come. So that's one point. And to support Stephen also, legislative framework, rights of way is basic and necessary, right? In a case of a Cat 5 hurricane where they are above ground, there's so much climate resilience, right? Maybe Cat 6, Cat 7, who knows where the climate disaster is going, but the ability to replace them quickly, ability to get permits through the municipalities, right? For new sites and rebuilding existing sites, building permits. So the whole channel of permits, I'm an expert in local government, you know the story there, right? Partnerships to facilitate and streamline those are critical. I can't say that's the case. Some parishes are better than others. I can't say that. That's something that we would want you to also look at. Also with respect to critical equipment that needs to come in, waivers, grants. For example, we saw JPS got a number of bucket trucks, and we were all delighted and excited. But I'm not sure what their arrangements are, but typically that's not duty-free. You have to pay duty if you're bringing in these trucks permanently. If they're temporary, you have to bring them in, pay the duty, and then when you're sending them back, you get the rebate. But in a critical crisis situation, those trucks are not just transportation. They're critical equipment, and the team could speak to it.
Yeah,
so
I think
in terms of trying to get waivers for those things. And there are other things, but back to you, Steve.
Yeah, especially when you're replacing existing infrastructure. It would be really helpful from that perspective. Because, I mean, obviously it redounds to the fact that if we do have to pay the additional costs, it will cost the consumer more. You know, so we're trying to avoid as many of those kind of costs as possible while we actually restore. I think Charles raised a point. I think one of the key things from a local government perspective, and it's something that we're going to address with Minister Mackenzie, as technology evolves and as we go into faster mobile technology in the near future, you are going to want more sites from a density perspective. I know in the past, Minister Mackenzie has accompanied Minister Vaz to countries like Puerto Rico just to see exactly how they do that kind of framework in terms of sidewalk sites, whereby the municipalities themselves have the opportunity to earn based on leasing sidewalk space from that perspective. That's something that's going to come to the fore as we evolve from technologies such as LTE to faster technology. Those are going to be things that we're going to have to look in. And just the last real bit for me, for myself and even my competition within the space, even through the storm, we have suffered the blows of vandalism and theft. Right now, we have theft island-wide. Fuel is like gold out there at this point, you know, and really you can't secure every site that you have out there. I would love if there could be some sort of recommendation for emergency legislation during this time in order to support either higher times in terms of persons being locked up for, or higher fines, especially during this critical time. It is just nonsensical what's happening out there from that perspective. Charles, I covered everything?
Yes, I think so.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Price has only 2 more pages left in his presentation. I think it makes sense for him to finish.
Yeah.
No, ma'am, I have 2 more pages.
Yeah, man, I'll go through it. I'll wait back.
Have him just finish the presentation, Chairman. I will take all the questions after.
Sure. On the mobile side, just gives you just the kind of robust work that we've taken. Just where we focus a lot of the resources. We're back up to 71% of sites. As said, we will be at 100% by the end of January, and the 100% is really dependent on just the remainder of the construction that needs to be done. In this process as well, we plan to add some additional sites as well, right, which we are going to seek, hopefully, some accelerated planning permissions for. But we want to make sure that we bring up everybody and expand and take the opportunity to bring coverage to more places than ever before. Where we are from mobile, all our sites, I will say to you, Kingston, 100%. I know it says Kingston and St. Andrew, but that's really St. Andrew, 95%. Where we are lowest is Trelawney and Westmoreland and St. James. And particularly in those parishes, we have used Starlink to get our sites back up. So it has been an excellent partner from that perspective in being able to bring up those sites. And I have to congratulate my mobile teams and my technical teams who have been working night and day, despite almost 250 of them having either lost roofs, homes, or suffered serious damage. They're out there as essential workers really working towards making sure that we bring Jamaica back up and make sure Jamaica is connected. But we are accelerating this pace, and likely by Christmas you will probably get some good surprises. And I think that's about it. We went through these needs already. Thank you very much, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Mr. Price. Member.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, let me say to the floor team, we want to support you in whatever way we can. But I'm here you asking for waivers and legislative policies to enhance your business. In business, investment redound to profit. And so by increasing your market share, it also increases your bottom line. And I hear you boast about you're the only one in this space that try to reach out to rural Jamaica. Commendation on that. However, those investments that you spoke about redound to greater revenue intake. And all of these waivers that you're proposing, I would love to know how it will benefit the end users, the consumers.
I think, I think the fundamental situation is that we have invested in building these things. And investments that have been done over the past 3, 4, 5 years. Very, very new investments. To do over those new investments in such a short space of time is a challenge for any business to build themselves back over again 2 years in a row. So it's really simply a recognition of the challenge from that perspective in order to, is there a facilitator environment that can enable us to get back quicker, faster, with as little cost to the consumer in the end result as possible. And that's really where we come from that perspective. We know it's a business for profit, definitely. But the fact is, it has been really challenging from that perspective. You know, in the rural areas, The strength of wallet is not necessarily the same as in our urban areas as well. So investing in those areas, yes, it's a risk, but at the same time, it's being done to make sure that the children of this country are able to educate themselves, that we're able to contact the security services, health services, and those kind of things. So we're fulfilling our role as a proper supporter of development in this country. And all we're asking is just some assistance in getting there.
I am not here to prohibit your request.
Yeah, but
I am very clear as to how it will look down to the pockets or the pocketbooks of the ordinary customer.
So if I may just...
One moment there. We have to turn off some of the mics for the...
I perhaps need a follow-up, Chairman. So let me...
Okay. You're two member of God.
Yeah. Very good question. As you can appreciate, technology, the services we provide, is not an end in itself. It's a means to an end. And when you are talking about the country using $8 billion in GDP and wiping out GDP, technology plays a critical role in bringing back up the economy. We don't have 12 months, 2 years, 18 months, 3 years to do this. So our partnership with the government and our investment is to expedite the recovery of those areas. The farms won't come back overnight. The crops in the breadbasket won't come back overnight. But certainly enabling people's ability to be innovative, creative, work, technology, whether locally or internationally, is critical. And so the speed at which we need to go, this would not have been anticipated. You have to find the capital. You have to go to capital markets. It's a real scenario, and one that the government itself faces. So you should be able to relate. So that is why these are not like frivolous asks. These aren't frivolous asks. They are considered asks to partner the government to get where we need to go. So how that redounds to the consumer is obvious, right? It's obvious.
Let me just welcome our substantive chair. He's here, and in respect of the standing orders, while the chairman is here, there should be no one else in the chair. So I now yield for our chair. Oh, but he's here, so I will just yield to him.
Good morning, everyone. Sorry to be late.
Morning, Chair.
Stress of life and high blood pressure had me down this morning, but to God be the glory, I'm here. We have to give God thanks. We will just continue from where my deputy would have had. So you may continue, sir.
Sorry? Follow. Thank you.
Sure.
I would not want you to leave this chamber believing that we who sits on this side is here to prohibit your growth and expansion. But as reasonable people, those we serve are usually those doing the heavy lifting, because every time you have capital investment, you have to recover, and you want to recover at your pace. And so invariably, you ask the OUR for a price adjustment. We are not saying in any way, shape, or form we don't appreciate. But as you said, you have still not answered the question, which is a very simple question. When you're doing your balancing act as it relates to your capital outlay and your service providers, how does the consumer, if at all, considered in that framework when you're doing your billing? It's a very simple question.
In terms of when we do our billing?
In terms of your capital investment.
Yes.
Your second spoke about the ask is not frivolous.
Yeah.
We didn't suggest that. We are saying we have to consider those who are most vulnerable. How do we protect them?
No,
So it's not a frivolous ask either from this side. What we're saying that the consumers over time usually carry that burden because the investment has to be recovered. You have a timeline to recover your investment. If you don't achieve it within that time, you pronounce that you have an operating loss. We all understand economics on this side. So I'm just asking for clarification.
So I will say this to you. I think speed is the key thing in this. Everybody wants us to recover as quickly as possible. I think from our perspective, we do see a path in terms of quick recovery. Quick recovery, however, requires additional outlay up front at heavier premiums in terms of getting it done as quickly as possible. You see the JPS, you see all the crews that we have. All of these, I'm not saying they're mercenaries, but I'm saying these guys are top dollar in terms of the persons that come down whenever to do this specific type of recovery work. It's very costly, right? The equipment, in terms of the replacement of equipment, is quite costly. What I will say to you is this. Our commitment is to ensure that we advance the technology to the next level. Mobile, our plan is to make sure that we jump to the next level in terms of the next evolution. In terms of the mix of technologies that we are using, especially to deliver fixed, we all recognize that it has to be more climate resilient. To build more climate resilient, it comes at a lot higher cost in terms of trenching, ducting, additional cables, all these kind of costs that will come into play from that perspective. I think for our perspective, we would like to be able to make those kind of investments, but at the pricing that we get those things for, plus duties and tax, you're not able to go at the speed that you'd be able to go up to the outlay of capital that you do have. So it's assistance in that area so that we are able to bring these kind of technologies to the consumer, enable faster restoration for them so that they are able to get back to their regular day-to-day activities of education and all the things of keeping contact with the people that they work with.
Thank you, Chairman. 2 weeks ago, we had a presentation and reference was made to your network, which is shared, rented, leased, your network. Reference was made to 2 loops critical to giving us the service we all require on all the networks in the West. I don't have my notes here with me. I made note of it expecting to see you a week ago. We canceled. Can you speak to that? Do you know what I'm referring to?
I think I know what you're referring to. I think you're referring to two segments of the network. Obviously, the Montego Bay through to Ocho Rios leg, which is all on the ground at this present point in time, obviously because that entire pole route is down. The other route is the Ocho Rios to Spanish Town route, which is largely on the ground. It goes through the hills, through, what's the route, Michael? Through Bogwalk, etc., and that stuff. Now, what we have been working with my competitor to get on is a segment of the subsea in order to allow them access. That we have provided pricing and allow them the access to get onto that network. That we await their final decision on. On the Ocho Rios to Spanish Town route, that has been burnt about maybe 5 times just because of the current restoration activities of GPS. What happens is the secondary just gets tangled with the cables. So we have had about 5 or 6 cuts. We have to wait on GPS for that particular route. One of the areas where we are seeking collaboration is on the north-south highway, and that's a discussion that we had started with Mr. Hunter from the NAA to see if we can get some areas of fiber on that route so that we can harden that route until JPS is complete, their complete rebuild of that entire route. So that's something they're working very hard on.
Thank you, Chairman, and I will stop here. I was listening carefully to your presentation, and I was looking at what possibly would instruct us on policy and the future. And I was looking at your, I refer to this page as your ask. A lot of what you presented is not here. I wonder, Chairman, if we can ask Flo to provide you, through you, just something for our records that would be in keeping with their presentation. I don't know how you want to go at it, but I believe for us to be able to use this presentation in the near future to put any pressure, any guidance, any understanding on the way forward with policy, we would have to have that clearly from you.
We'd be happy to.
So what you need to do, member, is just so ask request of it, and the members, if it is so inclined with them also, that they vote on it, and if it is a go, then the clerk of the committee will write to Flo, or they can take it from this meeting to provide us with the necessaries. So you can ask for.
With your guidance, so moved. I believe you have put it perfectly together, and we're so happy to have you.
And the committee is on it with you, so over to you.
We're happy to provide, so we'll put it there. I think what we wanted to make sure, we didn't want to bring too many asks to the table, right? So we put the 3 priority ones on here from that perspective in terms of just the rebuild and recovery.
Okay then, thanks.
Hi, morning, Chairman. Happy that you're here with us this morning, and I hope you get well soon. Chairman, and thank Flo and the team for being here. But looking on the presentation by Mr. Price and on the fixed line network, which was down at, damage was 70%. That means you're operational 30%. And a couple pages down, we're now up to 62%.
Yeah, that's at the point of the hurricane,
Right.
and this is where we are now.
62%, that means there'd be an increase of 32%. But sometimes these percentages can be a little bit misleading, because when you look at an increase of 32%, you say, boy, a lot of work is being done, which is being done.
True.
Right? However, when you look at the breakdown by parish, as of this document being printed, Hanover fixed line is still at 0%.
Still at 0%.
Westmoreland is at 3%.
Correct.
St. James only at 10%. So sometimes when you look at these percentages, persons who, I guess Mr. Flynn helped you with that, with the PR side of things, it sounds like there's a major, but people in Hanover will hear these numbers and get mad, because how can Flo be saying that they're at 62% and there's 0% in my parish?
No, which is why we're very transparent and open in terms of what we provided there, because I think what is very important for me to make sure that the public understands, the pole routes that we utilize are largely owned by the Jamaica Public Service. We have some of our own poles, but I'd say 80 to 90% of the poles in Jamaica belong to JPS. We subscribe with JPS for paying for each pole that we are on. So we're very heavily dependent on those pole routes in order to ensure that we restore the coverage. Now, they're actively, obviously, doing the work in St. James from their power station there in terms of extending that all the way into Hanover. And what we are doing and committed to do is we are working right behind them to make sure that we get that. But we try to make sure, first and foremost, there is communication from a mobile perspective. And we'll continue to push as we get in. Remember, at the start of the presentation, one of the key things in terms of the west, St. Elizabeth, is us closing that loop with that Black River landing station. Once we're able to get that connectivity, we can start to fan out and make sure those areas are up. But we are working assiduously to make sure that we bring up everybody. We'd like everybody to have a happy Christmas as best as possible. And I think from our perspective, we're working as hard as possible. Some will take the outer limits. I would say the most devastated area may take as much as to half year 2026. There may be some communities that would take that long, but we are trying to. If JPS is able to accelerate, we are able to accelerate as well. You know.
I have a follow-up, Mr. Chairman.
Members, I hate to do this, but it is a part of managing committee meetings. It is now 18 minutes to 12. The House sits at 2 p.m. We still have 2 or 3 other entities that we have to take, 4 other entities that we have to take. And so what I would ask of us, if we request of Flo to revisit us with some more information or added information, then we request that. But we now have to look at the fact that there are others waiting.
My final question, Chairman, and I'm done with Flo.
All right, so we'll take that final one and we'll take the decision. Now you'll vote on the decision if we want to invite Flo once again. So go ahead.
I'm going to ask Mr. Price the same question I asked 2 weeks ago to somebody who's sitting in your same chair for another company. And that is the fact that Jamaica is likely, unfortunately, to have hurricanes again in the future. Probably category 5, probably because we're having a challenge with climate change.
Yeah.
No, we can't keep doing this. I was happy to hear that you have underground or some sort of underground from Maypen to Montego Bay. I'm learning that for the first time because I heard it was I keep on hearing how expensive it is. It's very expensive because of, you mentioned duties and this and that. What is even more expensive is when a country loses half its GDP. That is what it costs a lot more. Mm-hmm. I think now would be the best time to begin to have the conversation about these duties and these other waivers that you want with our Minister of Finance, etc., who is an easy lady to talk to, easy person to talk to.
Definitely.
Very accessible. But now is the time because we're likely to have disasters again in the future, right? And I heard about the expense. The other company mentioned it. JPS, I'm sure when they mentioned it. But what is more expensive is when a country loses half its GDP. That's one. 2, Starlink. Starlink has become the most popular technology entity in Jamaica in recent weeks. What I want you to explain to me, where would Jamaica be today on November 25th, 2025, after having a Category 5 hurricane on the 28th of October? Where would we be today if Starlink did not exist?
I think if Starlink did not exist, I think for us, we would have to have brought in a significant, much more teams in order to really connect our entire fiber network back to those cell sites. It would have been a significant challenge. It has assisted us to leapfrog, but it has also provided us the comfort of a level of redundancy that we didn't have before, which we're happy to embrace and partner with them on moving forward. So I think it comes with the various evolutions of technology, remember? And I think from our perspective, we are gladly that they're definitely there. There will be competition in the space, as you're aware, from Amazon's Jeff Bezos in the low orbit space, and there are several other persons, Intelsat, all these others that are going to occupy that space. I think for us, something that we have to look at, something that we have to continue to partner, but you're always going to have these disruptors. And I think from our perspective, we have chosen the avenue of partnership. I think that's the best way to go as we go home. The only thing is, as they continue to grow, the government, the regulator, has to also start to consider what's the regulator environment that they will operate under.
So So thank you very much, Mr. Price and your team. I'm hearing, go ahead.
Chairman, based on this extensive presentation by Mr.
Price.
Mr. Price, and there's so much more questions I have and other members have, we're going to have to invite them back. Chairman.
And so the consensus of the consensus of the committee is that we invite them a second time. No, we will discuss the time.
We're at PAC next week.
So thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Price and your team. If you are at PAC, next week, then you'll be seeing some more faces. No, member, I am not going to allow you, member, you don't have the mic. Any information in preparation that you want to give to Flo, we will send it in a letter through the clerk's office. And so let me take time out this time to say a hearty thank you.
Thank you very much
for being here and being so extensive with your information, to the point that I find it very intriguing that my members are so intrigued that they want to have you a second time. You have done yourself well, and we just ask that we continue to partner as much as possible for the betterment of our citizenry and Jamaica at large. So you are okay to take your leave at this time.
Thank you so much.
And look forward to a communication from our clerk to tell you the date and time. And if there are specific questions or information that we would want you to share with us, then we will place it in that same document.
Certainly. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. So good morning. Good morning again, or good morning to you all. It is a wonderful morning, even though some of us aren't feeling well, including myself, notwithstanding the work of the people must continue, and therefore we avail ourselves as best as possible to be here. And so once we are here, then whether the seat is hot or not, we will have to sit and make it work for the betterment of this, our beloved country. Once again, let me say good morning to Mrs. Arlene Williams, Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Economic Growth and Infrastructure Development. I will ask you, Madam, being that you are the senior person here, even though I know a few other faces by name, that you will do the introduction for us in a timely manner.
Thank you so much, Chair. Good morning, Chairman and members. Thank you much for the invitation. With me today are members from the Port Authority of Jamaica. I have Professor Gordon Shirley here with me, as well as Mr. Gary Lawrence, who is a Senior Vice President, Engineering and Port Development. We also have the head of the National Works Agency, Mr. Everton Hunter, who is the CEO, and Mr. Varden Downer, Senior Director, Project Implementation. And from NROC, we have Mr. Stephen Edwards, Managing Director, as well as Mr. Fritz Sawyers, Senior Manager, Technical Services. And from the Central Ministry of Economic Growth and Infrastructure Development, I'm Arlene Williams, as you would have said. I'm accompanied by Mrs. Judith Rob Walters, who is the Principal Financial Officer, Mrs. Janet Coleman Howlett, who is Acting Chief Technical Director, Ms. Monique Gibbs, Senior Director, Strategic Planning, Performance Monitoring, Evaluation, and Risk Management. Chair, if I may say that our roads, highways, ports, and other operations have seen some impact following Hurricane Melissa. But the teams have been working, and I must say quite assiduously, to restore normalcy. And we're thinking about restoration, and not only restoration, but resilience building in how we do our work. And so as just a brief overview, because the entities will present and we have PowerPoint presentations to be made, the NROC has reported damage to the Montego Bay Perimeter Road in St. James, the greater percentage of which will be covered by the project insurance. Also, Port Authority was able to open some ports for operation within hours following the passage of the hurricane, and we think that was quite commendable, if we may say so ourselves. Likewise, the NAA has been successfully clearing several blocked roads, and they will give you an update as to where we are with that. There was also an expressed interest in the shared prosperity through accelerated improvement to our road network project, SPARK, which is being implemented by the NAA, and it continues in earnest. And I'm sure members would have seen the tremendous work that the NAA is doing. So the three agencies present here today will provide further details on the reports that have been previously submitted. And as I would have said, this will include share PowerPoint presentations. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Madam. I know all three, PAJ, NAA, and NROC, are the mega entities, so to speak, within the country. But from the three that are here, I suspect that PAJ is the easiest one of all. And so, from school days, I was taught to take the easiest sum first. You get enough time to do the harder ones. So I will now ask Professor Gordon Shirley to bring his report update to us.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. And it is a pleasure for me to be before this very august body to give you an update on the work that has occurred, the damages that have been done by the hurricane, and the actions being taken to bring back normalcy in all aspects of our operations. Chairman, just very briefly, a lot of preparation went into trying to minimize the effects of the hurricane on the harbors and ports of Jamaica, because we know how important they are to the economy. And so we shut down the harbors a day before the hurricane was expected to come. You might recall, Chairman, it was supposed to come close to Kingston, and then it was supposed to come in St. Catherine, and then it was supposed to come in Clarendon, Manchester, and we were hoping it would keep on going and pass St. James, but it didn't. So we were down for a total of 6 days because of that passage, of which one was the 16 hours it took to actually cross Jamaica. Immediately following that, Chairman, we set about trying to assess the damages and to bring the harbors back. We began with Kingston because we have a lot of equipment and facilities, and Kingston is the largest harbor. And we were able to bring that back within 1 day. We assessed all of the navigational aids and determined that they were in good shape. That 1 day also gave the two public wharves, Kingston Wharves and Kingston Freeport Terminal, enough time they had done a number of things to minimize damage, like lashing down the containers, put them, large blocks of them, lash them together so that the hurricane wouldn't be able to move them. They had to unlash them. They had taken down the masts. They had put the cranes into, set them up so that they would minimize the amount of damage. All that was done. We were able to bring back all of the important vessels, the tugs and the pilot boats that are necessary for the service, our project boat, Jamaica 3. And so we were up, and the morning of the 29th, the terminals were open and began taking cargo. I understand the PowerPoints are now up, Chairman, so I will those earlier slides would have told you the activities we were doing as the hurricane passed along Jamaica. So the damage that was done, I'll begin with Ocho Rios. You said you start with the easiest. Maybe Ocho Rios is the easiest because it was the most, aside from Kingston, Port Royal, and Port Antonio. I won't speak to those beyond what I've said about Kingston, because really and truly Kingston got away compared to what went on in the West. And neither Port Royal or Port Antonio there were damages, but these are superficial damages that are easily addressed. Ocho Rios, we had just completed the works to restore berth 2 in Ocho Rios, our main berth in Ocho Rios, which had been damaged in 24 by a freak weather event that slammed a ship that was at berth against the berth and damaged both the ship and the berth. And we had to undertake extensive repairs to berth 2. We were just about to reopen it, and the hurricane came. Thankfully, there was no damage to berth 2. Berth 1 is a section of the berth that is used for smaller vessels, very rarely used these days. We had, if you look in the image on the screen at the upper right, there is a barge that was used in the repair work that had been disabled, and it could not have been moved out of the harbor. All the other equipment was moved out of the harbor. It remained behind, and we would have it, the hurricane took it and slammed it against berth 1 and dislocated one of the slabs that make up the walkway. That slab is on the ground, on the seabed. We will fix that. It's not a insurmountable issue. We can put in a temporary catwalk, and Mr. Lawrence behind me can explain. We are going to lift the slab and, if possible, replace it on the walkway. Aside from that damage, Chairman, the only other damage, there's a lot of waterborne debris that was washed up onto the main berth. A lot of vegetation damage, but no structural damage to the buildings. So as a result, we were able to reopen Ocho Rios very quickly, and it is a testament, Chairman, to the resilience. A testament to the resilience of our island that we now have 2 berths in Ocho Rios. We had just a couple of years ago rebuilt Reynolds Pier. Now we have 2 berths, Reynolds Pier and berth 2, that are the mainstay of the cruise business right now because they are fully open. And the attractions in Ocho Rios are also largely fully back up, so Ocho Rios is doing well. A year ago, when the damage had occurred, we had to move some of the vessels that had been scheduled to call Ocho Rios to Falmouth and Montego Bay to prevent Jamaica from losing those calls. If we lose those calls, it's difficult to get them back. Now, Ocho Rios is repaying the favor. Falmouth and Montego Bay are down. We are moving some of those calls into Ocho Rios. And we hope not to lose very many before we get those 2 terminals back up. So Ocho Rios is fully back. To get it back, we had to do hydrological surveys and to dive the berth. Those were done, and by November the 3rd, the berth was declared fully open to traffic. The official reopening took place on the 12th when the second cruise ship came. Moving on to Falmouth.
You're protected, Professor. Continue. No, but the report, he's given a report. As soon as he's through with the report, members can ask questions.
I'll be quick, Minister. MP. So I'm moving to Falmouth. The hurricane, in its passage across the country, came in at Good Hope to the south, and it left just around Falmouth. So Falmouth bore a fairly large part of the effect of the hurricane. Truth is that by then it had exhausted some of its venom. So it was bad, but it could have been worse. Falmouth as a terminal is still largely intact. There was, however, considerable damage to certain structures. Here you see, for example, these are facilities that are used when the cruise guests come off and they are awaiting, going on to the tour buses that take them to the attractions. These are sheds that protect them from the sun and so on. These are large sheds. These are steel structures. And as you can see, the steel structures are flat on the ground. The hurricane destroyed those structures. They have now been removed. We are also repairing a historical building called the Tharp House. Mr. Tharp was a famous colonizer, and he had his house on the port, and it's a historical port with many important aspects to it. We had just about completed restoring it, and the hurricane hit out one of the windows, which you see in the image there, and damaged some of the roof, and we will be restoring that. The main terminal itself, the image to the left, the main cruise terminal is at the southern end of that, the bottom of that. It lost some shingles. The truth is that we had anticipated re-roofing or re-shingling that building in the 2026-27 financial year. However, the lost shingles will replace those. The red structures house shops, and I would say that they were largely unscathed. There was some loss of capping on those buildings, but no, none of the standing beam sheets were lost from those. There are, if you look towards the north of the image, you will notice that Falmouth is normally a very green, very lush kind of terminal. I don't think there's one tree standing in Falmouth at this point. All the trees were blown down, all the lamps were blown down, all the fences were blown down. And so a lot of the damage relates to those kinds of challenges. This in the image shown there is a watercraft jetty that is used for water sport activities and so on. That jetty, the flooring of the jetty, the sea lifted up all the wooden slabs that form the floor of the jetty. Another image that shows the fences that were blown down shows the bottom right diagram shows what we refer to as our back of house. That's where the administrative activities take place. The tank you see in the middle is our water tank, a large water tank. The roofing on that was damaged. The area that we experienced most damage was in Montego Bay, actually, Chairman, both at the cruise terminal and the free zone that we operate in Montego Bay. This is an image of our main cruise terminal in Montego Bay. We call it berth 5 and 6. It is, the building itself did not sustain very much damage because it is our only slab-roofed building, terminal building that we have. But some windows in the skylights that you see there were broken. But again, that is superficial. We have boarded those up and the terminal is usable. The berth itself, you will see some arrows pointing to some large sausage-looking objects. Those are actually fenders. Those are what sit in the water and prevent the ship from hitting against the concrete berth. And those were sitting in the water, and the sea lifted almost all of them and threw them up onto the berth. Some of them broke loose from they have a heavy chain that holds them together. Some of them were, one end of it might have been broken. Some of the elements that hold them in place on the concrete slab were broken. Our Harbors and Port Services Department have been at work since the day after the hurricane, or a few days after, trying to, or putting those back, and all of them are now effectively restored, Chairman. Again, if you look at the environment, there is not one tree that you see in that entire image, and there were lots of trees, and these are not minor trees. These were big 100-year-old type trees. All of them were blown down. This is inside one of the 2 cruise ship terminals that we have at that port. We call this one the Bird 2 terminal. It lost some sheeting, and you see the internal damage that was done with all the hung roofing torn out and damage, windborne damage to the structure. The external structure is fine, Chairman. We are currently in the process of re-roofing that structure. Here's a building that on the cargo side of our operations, Chairman, that is used to store cement. It is a company called Bine House, has a lease that brings in cement and stores in this structure. This is a large steel-framed structure, and the elements, all the girders on that are large steel structures. And I think you would have to see this building to believe it's like a bomb dropped on it. It just twisted all of these heavy I-beams and of course lost most of the roofing on it. The cement, there's about $1 million worth of cement in the facility, and efforts are being made to try to salvage that, because it's in containers that prevented it from becoming water damaged. So this is a major structural problem that exists there. Moving quickly to the free zone, sir. The free zone, Montego Bay Free Zone, is the largest free zone in the country. It has about 800,000 square feet of facilities that are leased to factories. For Seaboard operates a warehouse there, as well as BPO activities. And I would say 80% of the roofs were badly damaged there. You can see from this structure that several of them were the sheeting and shingles that were on these roofs were all badly damaged. This image shows the inside. After the roof is removed and water gets into the building, it tears up the internal hung roof structures, but you will see in the left diagram that even the air conditioning systems, the HVAC systems were badly damaged in several of these facilities. Outside, you see the light poles. Most of them were on the ground, and you will see an image to the upper left. You see that even the trucks, these are not pickups, these are large trucks, blown over. It took up containers and threw it like little boxes around the terminal, around the free zone. Sorry, another image that shows a roof that will have to be replaced in its entirety. Then I move next to the navigational aids. Our navigational aids did very well, Chair. There was only one lighthouse at Rose Hall that was destroyed. It was broken. The upper section was broken off. But we are glad that even areas like Lover's Leap, which was fully exposed to the early stages of the hurricane, were undamaged because of the nature of the construction of those lighthouses. So we were okay there. Aside from the lighthouses, there were a few buoys that were blown from their existing location, but all of those have been put back into operation and in the right location. And this diagram just shows the sequence of reopening. On the 29th of October, we opened the Kingston Harbor. On the 31st, we opened Montego Bay to cargo operations. On the 31st, Portland Bight and Rocky Point, which were our alumina ports, were reopened. On the 1st of November, Rio Bueno was reopened. Discover Bay on the 1st of November. And the three cruise ports were opened to traffic on October 3rd, Ocho Rios, Falmouth, and Montego Bay. And Port Antonio was also reopened on the 3rd. The last two are our engineering team, which is led by Mr. Gary Lawrence, who has joined me, have been very busy since the hurricanes are in doing their estimates of the damage which has been done for each of the buildings. The first order of business is to examine and determine the bill of quantities to replace what is there. Now that we have done that, Gary, is before we go ahead and just simply replace what was there, he and the engineering team are looking at what we should do in rebuilding to ensure that should we face this kind of a hurricane or something close to this, that we would have a much better, we would not lose as much roofing and we would not have as much damage. I know that the question you'd want to ask is what is the total? The total for rebuilding as is would be just over $2 billion is the estimate that we have at this point in time. And there are some elements that are not yet included in it, but we are looking at $2 billion. We have begun the repairs on the essential items at the Montego Bay terminal. Falmouth, as I told you, Ocho Rios is entirely back. Falmouth terminal is usable at this point, and we have started repairing the free zone with a view to ensuring that none of our customers will be lost. What we have done in that case, Chairman, is move some of our big customers into areas that were not damaged by the hurricane while we repair the facilities that they were housed in and quickly be able to move them back as soon as we are able to put the roofs back on. So that, Chair, would be the report from the Port Authority. Yes, MP.
Am I right?
Good morning, PS and the team, Professor Shirley. I haven't seen you in a while. Nice seeing you. Just quickly, looking at Kingston and looking at the other terminals, if we had gotten it in Kingston, and let's say it had made landfall close or in Kingston, could you anticipate the level of damage? And that's really not the question. But now, going forward, so looking forward, going into the future, do we see in terms of improvement, in terms of using new technology, infrastructure, that can make our terminals, our port facilities, climate resilient as best as we can? Because as we have said, based on all the information we are getting with respect to climate change, extreme storm systems will face us. And in terms of keeping our economy stable, making the country resilient, it means that we have to apply more climate resilient infrastructure across as best as we can. We know affordability is an issue. But sitting where you sit and looking into the future, are you seeing the possibility of improving the resilience of our ports by applying new technology and new infrastructure?
Thank you for that question, MP. I would say, yes, there are things that can be done, but I would also say that, just point out a few things. One, in Kingston, a lot of investment has gone into both Kingston Wharves and Kingston Freeport Terminal. They have new berths, and they are at such a height that storm surge would not be as problematic. Would there have been damage to the cranes? It is possible. Certainly the older cranes may have sustained some damage given the fury that we have seen, and a new look is going to be taken at some of those kinds of considerations. The truth is that things like the vessels that we use that are important, the tugboats and pilot boats and so on, what we would have done in that case, if it were coming to Kingston, those boats would have been removed out of the zone. They'd have been taken to the east or to the north, to an area where they would be more sheltered, and then brought back in. Because we knew it was not going to be there, they were sheltered in situ, so to speak, and we had no damage on that. What we have seen is the structures. There would be structures on the terminals, the roofs and so on, that would have been badly damaged too. And so what the lessons for roofing technology and systems that we will take away from Montego Bay and Falmouth, we are going to look at all of our systems, including the private terminals. We'll share the information so that they would be protected. I would say, however, you didn't ask this question, but I would point it out, that we are also concerned. Let us say Falmouth, well, all three of them. Wherever we have our terminals, we live within a town. And the towns are where we see the greatest vulnerabilities, sir, because the drainage systems, the protection, the seawalls and so on are not there. So if you look at Falmouth was entirely flooded when this came. The port wasn't flooded, but the town was flooded. And so in addition to looking at how we protect the port, because the port without the town is not viable, right? So we have to do more working with the municipalities to address some of those challenges that we see, MP Williams.
Thank you, Chairman. Let me go back to Falmouth.
Yes, sir.
The facility built between 2008 2009, the actual port, seems to have fared very well. And you indicated that it was not hit in your presentation. It was not hit with the full force. But at some point, the Port Authority would know what sort of winds pass there, what level of sea surges. It's important for us to know here, because 20 years ago, when we were building and designing and agreeing on that development, there were a lot of opinions and considerations. So we would want to know if it has stood up well and what it stood up to.
So it still is a Category 5 hurricane that it saw, or it may have gone down to Category 4 by then, but it's still there are very few terminals in the world that would have faced what that terminal down there faced to this point in history. Certainly in Jamaica, within the Caribbean, none of them have faced it. And so it stood up to that. I think there are infrastructure items, MPN, not casting a blame or anything, but you have things like the drag line that is really a very essential element to protecting a low-lying town. So Falmouth is so flat that some of the water, groundwater, would drain back towards land than going forward towards the sea. And so the drag line is able to take that drainage, and what happens, it's like a gully that runs around the entire town. When the sea is, the waves are heavy on one end, it washes it in one direction. When it reverses and it's going in the other direction, it washes the other way. That's how it's supposed to work when it's effective. If you don't clean it, then the water can't move in either direction. And so rather than draining and doing that purpose, the water settles in the town, and that's what happened. So I went down on the day after the hurricane to Falmouth, and it was up to everybody's knees. People were walking in the streets up to their knees, busily trying to collect sheets of metal that were blown off their roofs and going about their business. But so that would be, I'm just being honest, MP, that is a concern to the resilience of the system rather than just the port.
Reynolds Pier.
Yes, sir.
It has not had the level of investment that Falmouth Pier has had. Am I correct?
Reynolds Pier, at the pier itself, we have put in a lot. We have spent 28 million US just in rebuilding that pier. So I think it is in very good condition now, the pier. But the berth, the structures are old alumina structures. We did not, but that silo, the big one that you see, is a structural engineer is behind me. He can respond to it, but it's a very sturdy structure. I would say the older warehouses that they used to have, we have replaced some of those. We have created a new office structure for them that would have been built to our current building standards. So I think that I wouldn't say that it's certainly not as new as that other terminal, but it is in Reynolds is now in a reasonable state. But Gary, would you have a different view?
Not at all, Prof. In taking a look at what has actually transpired, what we find is that, as you have said, is that in terms of all that has been put into Reynolds in itself, both in terms of the new admin facilities that we built, the new terminal building that we have also constructed on the facility, as long as improvements to the pier itself, has actually improved the offerings at Reynolds Pier in itself, including a new also bus staging area that was also constructed.
Chairman, let me try and be a little more specific. The class/size cruise ship that can be accommodated at Falmouth Pier, can you say something about what can be accommodated at Otrius as opposed to Falmouth at this time, based on the policies that were in place for a full development of Otrius to be able to accommodate similar class as Falmouth? And let me put it that way.
MP, and that adds further clarity. So Falmouth is the only terminal in Jamaica and one of the few in the Caribbean that can take what is called the Oasis class vessels. Falmouth is also able to take what is called the Icon class vessels. These are the largest vessels that are the largest cruise ships that are used across the globe. Up to this point, it's primarily Royal Caribbean Cruise Lines that operates those ships, and so they could go into Falmouth. The Ocho and Montego Bay terminals can take the classes below that level. And one of the things that we are doing in Ocho is doing the designs for a pier, a berth, that would be able to take the very larger ships that are coming. And this is because Ocho is a very special location given the uniqueness of the attraction. There's no other terminal in the Caribbean that has the range of attractions that Ocho has. But what we face, MP, I think you know, is that, again, I mentioned it earlier, these are old towns that we have built in. And even Ocho which is a newish town compared to Port Antonio or even Falmouth, the ability to handle the kind of traffic that you have, even today is something that we have to look at. And I know that a lot of work is going into the bypass around these facilities, and we are not directly involved. Maybe the gentlemen that are with me can speak more to those items, but it's a system that has to be looked at, Minister, so that you can handle the much larger volumes, because each of those ships would take 8,000 people, 7,000 to 8,000 people. So you could have 16,000 people plus 3,000 cruise members each, again, on top of that, just from those. And we are not going to undo what we have done at Reynolds Pier and at Berth 2. So you could have a very large number. So we have to plan Ocherius now to be able to take the kind of volumes that some of the other major terminals in Bahamas and so on are able to take at this point, MP.
I will have to go now to port development, pier development for handling, for example, marl whitening on the north coast, specialized piers. We would have to now be looking and asking you now about aggregate piers on the east/south coast, because this is now going to become very, very important for us to be sustainable in our economies, diversification, and when you look at what we went through and how we are now shut down to a great degree in Montego Bay and the other side of the island with tourism.
Yeah, yes, sir. So just to restate your observation is that the economic activity on the east needs to be boosted so that we can be more resilient should something happen again on the west, is what I understand. And so you're asking about things like the aggregate ports, and this is something that we have been doing a fair amount of work on, sir, because there is a demand for aggregate, and we have worked with the alumina companies to try to get the use of those facilities, because that's low-hanging fruit. They already have ports and they have facilities. But new ports, and we have looked at Bowden, we have looked at Cow Bay, and we continue to look at the developments on that side, as well as a couple of other locations. We continue to work with the Ministry of Mines on that, because we are committed to addressing that problem, MP.
A very parochial matter. Maybe 25, 30 years ago, Port Authority took over areas and road systems and drainage systems in Port Bustamante, Newport West area. A lot of the areas where we had drainage, traditional drainage systems, were blocked, closed off, port development. For 30 years, it has not been addressed. National Work Agency takes the beating when these warehouses and the whole of our ports are flooded and the corridor that takes us from east to west is blocked for days or hours at night. What is Port Authority doing about that? Because it has been an ongoing problem not addressed by Port Authority.
So MP, I think that, as you have said, there has been some damage to drainage systems in the Newport West area in particular, in front of Kingston Wharves. At the moment, I would say there's a project that we have with NWA to address both the roads and the local drainage in that area. But your bigger problem, which is the flooding that occurs on the Marcus Garvey Boulevard and so on when we have heavy rainfall, and which is that extensive flooding. It's not just because of the blockages there, MP, it is also because of what is happening to the rest of Kingston. If you look, that is the area where everything that comes off the hills, that doesn't get into the gullies, that's where it comes. And so we know that the drainage systems that were put there, there's one drain that is intended to catch some of this on the, I guess, north of Tinson Pen. Is it north? Yeah, north of Tinson Pen, which just can't handle the volume of water that comes. So it just fills up and it flows over into Tinson Pen, and then it goes over and it finds Marcus Garvey as, it views Marcus Garvey as the next drain. There's a little drain there, but it's not big enough. So there is work being done by NWA on a comprehensive drainage system that would address that problem in its entirety and take it out to the Hunts Bay area. That work, they have gotten external consultants and they are looking at that. There's also some work that EG can speak to, which is to look at potentially moving Marcus Garvey or relocating that. And that would, I think these two projects would have to go hand in hand. So those projects, although the 30 years has passed, as you have pointed out, it's not that they are not being looked at the moment, MP. They are, because it's recognized that that infrastructure is very valuable to the country, very important to the country, and therefore we have to put in the protective mechanisms.
Oh, thank you, Chairman. I know we have a time issue, so let me quick. Yeah, man. Professor Shirley. First of all, I think the Port Authority need to be commended because shortly after the storm, you were back up, you said within 6 days, and you should be commended. Looking at the conclusion page here, page 14, where you mentioned that the cost of the damage is approximately 1.33 billion, but you subsequently said it's 2 billion. But you have an insurance policy in excess of US $84 million. So by this, I should understand that you have enough money to take care of yourself. That's one question. Two, that's one question. You should be okay based on the policy, that excellent policy that you have. You mentioned the Lover's Leap lighthouse that stood up, but the Rose Hall one didn't. And the Lover's Leap have a new design, new. Explain to me why that happened, and if you plan to build future lighthouses like how you did the one in Lover's Leap.
And maybe I'll also call on Gary with the structural elements. I give you my view and he can give you his. The insurance would be for the entire Port Authority. And as you know, we are far-flung, we are spread out, so they're not going to give you because you insured something in Kingston for damage that is done in Montego Bay. So the assessors are doing their studies now on that damage. As you pointed out, this first report was presented when the PS told us that we had to get her report immediately. So that was before the engineers had finished all of their assessments. And as I told you, the 2.02 that is in there now is not the final number either. There is going to be more added to that. I would say that we are insured, sir, and the insurance will work its way. Because of the importance of what we do, we can't wait on the insurance to give us that money. So we are addressing the most critical elements to ensure that all the terminals and the free zones are in operation. And we will do our best to recover what we can from the insurance companies. I'm not sure, the insurance companies may not, if they were around, I wouldn't tell them that we are doing everything that we have, but we have to get the country going back, so that's what we are doing, sir. In respect of the design of the lighthouses, the truth is that the one I think you've seen the lighthouses and the way they are designed internationally is this kind of an inverted cone, ice cream cone turn on, and, that's how they are built, and it allows the winds to blow around the lighthouses. So when we say the Lover's Leap wasn't damaged, but the buildings, the structures were destroyed in the last hurricane. So what we did, we're going to be rebuilding that, but we have not yet rebuilt it. So it's just a lighthouse itself that survived. Now, your question still stands, and we did show you an image of Rose Hall. And you will see that lattice structure that is there. The problem with it, sir, is that that structure is made of steel. And it's in a very hostile environment to steel. And so it rusts. And after, it would be very expensive to make it out of stainless steel. So it's made out of steel, and after a while, those members become frailer. And then when you subject that to the kind of loading of wind that we would have received over with hurricane, the last hurricane, it just snapped it. But Gary, maybe you have a more sophisticated explanation.
Not really, Professor Shirley. Your analysis and analogy is quite appropriate in terms of exactly what the structure would have actually undergone based on those conditions in itself. The other thing that maybe would add is that in terms of the typical lighthouses that we have among all our structures, that they're typically made out of stone or concrete, and therefore they're far more rigid and therefore carry a greater mass than what would happen in terms of the lattice structure that is shown in the picture above.
Member Gordon, you wanted to ask.
Thank you, Chairman. Good afternoon, Professor and the team. Thank you for being proactive and your foresight. But I'm really happy that you clarified the insurance scenario here, in that the 84 million US represent full coverage of all your assets and not specific to Falmouth. Good. Could you say the dislocation of your operation in Montego Bay and Falmouth will have significant impact on your revenue source? Where are you going to find the money from via the drawdown on the insurance company to build out that necessary infrastructure to start to earn again?
So the impact on our revenues would be from the loss of vessels coming into Jamaica. And so the first order of business, MP Gordon, is to try to ensure that we retain as many of our calls as possible coming into Jamaica. And you might recall I told you that Montego Bay and Falmouth are down now. So any call that is not going to Montego Bay or Falmouth, we are talking to cruise lines. We have Ocherios available, and if they are small vessels, we'll point them to the other terminals as well. So that's one. Two, we are trying to get the cruise operations back in Montego Bay. Montego Bay actually took its first cruise call on Monday of this week, yesterday, and did very well with it, and we expect that there will be more. And we think that that is important, both for our revenue, sir, but also for the large. Cruise is one of the areas in tourism that impacts on the livelihood of many people. The tour bus operators, the craft vendors, the guys who drive the pedicabs. There are a vast number of people that benefit from it. And so as the economy in the West rebounds, as people start to get back on their feet, having jobs are going to be very important. And that's why it's very important to get that economy going. The cargo port in Montego Bay is the closest one to the very badly damaged areas to the west. And so that would be the best place to be taking off cargo instead of bringing it into Kingston and trying to drive it all the way over. And that's why we are pleased that by the end of this week or the next week, we will have the full restoration of that cargo facility operating there, sir. So it is important to the economy of the West to get those ports back up.
Okay, so is
Member, whilst all the questions that you are prepared to ask today are very important to the restoration, we still be watching the time. I am going to crave your indulgence that we get all the questions prepared. We can send them over to PAJ. And if it is necessary that we invite them a second time, or we can just take the questions and they create a response, send back to us, and either way we can accept. But let us be mindful of the time. And so any other questions that you have for PAJ, we will put them together, pass to the clerk, and have the clerk send them over to PAJ for a response. But at this time, I would say that we have two other entities and would really want to hear something from them. We have almost an hour to go. I'm going to say to us that let us be mindful of the time and minimize the number of questions that we want to ask today. If it is necessary, then we re-invite them to be with us. At this time, we will now ask NROC to state the report quickly so that we can get the few questions to you out quickly, and then we give NWA the rest of the time before we leave. Turn your mic, yes. Turn your mic. No, man, just turn it. All right, you're on.
Thank you, Chairman. Good afternoon, good morning. Is this morning? It's now afternoon. Good afternoon, Chairman. Good afternoon, members all. Chairman, I would have noted your instruction to be efficient. Let me follow your precedent and start with our easiest item, which is the operations of the existing toll roads, the east-west and north-south toll roads, which are government-owned assets. But as you would appreciate, both highways, east-west and north-south, NROC is a grantor under the concession agreement for those, so we have interest in them. Both highways, east-west and north-south, did not suffer any structural damage, and they both remain operational. So that's the easy part. Now I'll get to our projects. The Mapen to Williamsfield Highway suffered minor damage, no structural damage, but the damage suffered was largely characterized by trees falling on the right-of-way fence. Some of the lighting fixtures were damaged, and the tolling system had minor damage as well. But the roadway itself remains operational, so there was nothing that prevents the roadway from functioning. So those items, we will have to repair those. There was also some damage to a supporting road. As you know, NROC constructs the toll roads, but we also construct supporting roads as well for the toll road network. One such road is the Woodley Access Road that was constructed as part of the Mapen to Williamsfield project, S-Strip Part A. There was a drain there that collapsed, and we'll have to repair that as well. But as for Mapen to Williamsfield, the road remains in good structural standing and operational. So that's Mapen to Williamsfield. I now shift my focus, Chairman, to Montego Bay. The Montego Bay Perimeter Road, which you know is a very large project, suffered varying aspects of damage, largely around scouring of the site. There was no major structural damage, but there was some scouring and minor landslides. And that has caused debris to accumulate on the bypass, the Montego Bay bypass. We also have offices in Montego Bay, site offices for NROC. Our site office was badly damaged. We've had to be creative, to find other ways to keep the operations going for NROC in that area. The contractor's residence, Czech's residence in Montego Bay, was damaged as well. They experienced severe flooding, and about 30% of their property was damaged. Now, there are pictures contained in the report, and I understand the report was circulated. The damage to the Montego Bay perimeter road, we expect that to be covered by the project insurance. So we'll wait until that process is completed. But the costs associated with Maypen to Williamsfield, we'll have to seek funding to make those minor repairs. To Chair, that concludes, in summary, you asked us to be efficient. That concludes the summary of our report, which was circulated already. So if there are any questions, we could take them.
Members, do you have any questions? Well, I will ask a question, seeing that I'm the one from that side of town. I noticed the bridge, that bridge.
Yes.
The river would have done some erosion. Give us an update on the bridge itself since Melissa.
Thank you, Chair. So the bridge itself, there was no structural damage to the bridge itself. You would have seen erosion to non-structural elements in the area, right? So we can assure the public that the bridge remains intact and the project continues.
Thank you, Chairman. The completion date has not changed or has shifted based on the passing of Category 5.
Thank you for that question, Member. So at this point in time, the completion date remains May 2026 at this point in time. We're working with the contractor to adjust the project schedule so that we can meet that deadline.
The Maypen Bridge, also, can you address that one? No, the damage.
Thank you, Member, through Chair. The Maypen Bridge did not suffer any structural damage as well. So both bridges, the one in Montego Bay and the one in Maypen, which are similar in construction, neither of them suffered any structural damage. There was some concern on social media about some scouring that persons would have noticed at the base. That scouring is not to any structural element. That is really just a temporary platform that was built so that the contractor could have worked on the beams for the bridge. So that's not a structural element. It just remained there because it didn't cause any, right. So the scouring of that does not affect the bridge. It's really aesthetic at this point, and the contractor has committed to improving the aesthetic. But we can confirm that the bridge, the Maypen to Williamsfield Highway, remains operational and safe for use.
Thank you very much, NROC. At this time, I take it that there is no more question. NROC, the contractor, has been doing great and excellent work where those two pieces of road are concerned, and therefore we take your word on it that everything is in place. I too would have observed some things, and from a layman's point, I realized that it was well constructed and it stood the test of time. At this time now, we will say thank you, Enra, and we will move over with what time we have left for now to Mr. NWA.
Good afternoon, Chairman, members. In the interest...
Before you go, Sir Hunter, I just want to say to my members that though you may be burning with questions after questions, we are not going to be able to allow any one member to pose more than 2 questions, maybe 3. But allow the report to be tendered so that it may answer some of the questions that you want to ask. All right? So go ahead. No, I will. No. No. I will allow NWA to pose their report, and no, not because you have read the report. What I don't want is for all of us to be asking the same question in a different way. Let us take the... I am going to, if I see you going down the wrong path, I'm going to stop you. Go ahead.
Thank you very much, Chairman, members. In the interest of time, I'm going to ask Mr. Downer to run through the prepared report. We'll put a lot of time in preparing the report so that we present it. And I promise that anyone who has any questions or any concerns, if you meet me in the corridor, I will give you the assurance that it will be solved.
Thank you, CEO. Thank you, Chairman. Just to try and move quickly, seeing that you have read the report already. So let me just give you in summary where we are. We had prepared ourselves for the hurricane, and I think we prepared ourselves fairly well. We have had over 400 roads that were affected, as per our report. At this point in time, we would have reopened to at least single lane 212 roads, and to full 2 lanes, we would have reopened 177 roads. So 15 roads would remain blocked at this point in time. Of the 15 roads that remains blocked, 3 of them are due to major breakaways that have occurred. 7 are due to inundation, for which we will have to wait until the water recedes. With respect to the major breakaways, that's long-term solutions. So we would have sought alternative access for the residents and communities that would have been cut off from the major breakaways.
Sorry, Mr. Palmer, just an observation. I realize that the PowerPoint is saying PAAC, and we have a sessional.
Yes, that would have been an
error.
Take
it that it would be the same information that is there?
It's similar information, that's correct, sir. But
Okay.
we did send down the one for Infrastructure Committee. We apologize for what is shown on the screen there. But if I may just quickly, and then we'll allow. So I mentioned that there were 15 roads that remain blocked, 7 of which are due to inundation, so we have to wait until the water recedes. 3 are due to major breakaway, for which we have sought detour or alternate routes for the affected communities. And there are 5 roads, that are still being worked on for clearance. So that would give us a summary with respect to the over 400 roads that have been affected. Quickly, Chairman, the traffic signals that have been affected as well, 336 traffic signals have been affected, for which we have restored 271 across the island, and there are 65 remaining, largely due to the lack of power supply, which we depend on the JPSCO power supply. So we're working closely with our partners, JPSCO, to have that done. In keeping with the report that we have submitted, the matter of the update on the accelerated bridge program was also asked, so I'll just go through that quickly. The program, Mr. Chairman, is actually for 55 bridges across the island. We are going through the process of getting the program approved through what we commonly call the PIAB process with the Ministry of Finance. we have made submission for the first component of the two-part submission, which is the concept that has been submitted. It's been reviewed. We await the call for the presentation of such, and then afterwards we will submit the proposal. After we would have submitted the proposal, then it goes straight to the Cabinet. After Cabinet is approved, then we will enter into the contract through our parent ministry with the contractor in question, which is Legan Aviation, in keeping with the agreement between the government of Jamaica, the government of the United Kingdom, for 55 modular bridges. Final point, Chair, and we do hope that this program will in fact see commencement of works in the first quarter of 2026, 2027. The final point, set of questions that were raised with us is with respect to the Spark program, and I'll just give you a quick update. The Spark program, as you're aware, is actually a program 45 billion Jamaican dollars, and we started that pretty much earlier this year. The program has two components to it, one of which is the local and community roads, and the second, which is $20 billion, and the second component is main roads for another $20 billion. We have started with the local and community roads, and we are proceeding with that. There's another $5 billion to round out the $45 billion to upgrade affected water lines that is actually part of the project as well. We have issued work orders to the main contractor for the 4 packages for which the island is divided up in, for 267 roads. For work orders 1 to 4, the contractor is working on 103 of the 267 roads because we only recently issued work orders 5 and 6. So work are progressing on those. The progress at this point in time is approximately 15%, so we have certified approximately 5.5 billion Jamaican dollars for the works component, which is about 36 billion Jamaican dollars for the works component, while the other supervision, administration, project management, etc., rounds off the remaining $45 billion, and materials as well. The Hurricane Melissa did in fact have an impact on the program, where there's an estimated 4-week gap since Melissa, so the contractor is expected to resume work early December. In addition to that, the damage to roads were approximately 2 roads that were still under construction, and the estimated cost is about 30 million Jamaican dollars. The other roads, however, that were already completed have stood up well. Finally, the Spark program itself, just to remind us, the employer is the Ministry of Economic Growth and Infrastructure Development. The contractor, which is the main contractor, is China Harbour Engineering Company, with a number of subcontractors who he has engaged and manages. And the engineer is the National Works Agency, being supported by 3 consulting firms with a suite of engineers and other technical staff that are having boots on the ground to supervise, monitor the works being carried out by the contractor on a daily basis. That in a nutshell, Chairman, is the summing up of our report. Thank you very much.
In the interest of time, can you just tell us what 3 roads or 3 areas have major breakaways that you have not addressed? We know, or we assume, Newcastle is one of them.
Yes, okay, thank you. So we have for Portland, Wakefield to Hardware Gap is one of them. Just looking through my list here. The Newcastle Road, as you mentioned, member, is another one. We also have Yallas to Easington, which is another. And we also have, yes, I think that pretty much would constitute the 3 of them.
Following a presentation, a similar presentation we made at Cabinet, Chairman, Ministers, you know, there is the injunction that not only should we build back, but we should try and build back better. And so one of the issues that came up and is ripe for discussion is whether or not some of these roads, we should seek to reconstruct them in their present location. Because when you look at the marginal costs to construct and maintain versus the marginal benefit in terms of population served, then it does pose a problem. Now, no decision has been taken, but from purely a policy point of view, it would serve the country to re-examine some of these structures to make a decision if that's the way you want to go in future.
Thank you, Chairman. Good afternoon. As we seek to rebuild stronger and better, there are some variables that I need clarification on. And let me start with the Sandy Gully Bridge, the Sandy Gully, which impact my constituency. For over 20 years, there has been no major maintenance work. If Melissa had passed through Kingston and St. Andrew, we would have major death and dislocation. Is there anything in your current budget to at least start remedial work in some critical areas, particularly in the Kasha Park area, where homes and properties are under threat? That's question number one. Question number two, the gridlock in the city when it rains. And I would like a little bit more clarification on the proposal, though no decision has been made, as to how you intend to reroute the traffic in the city to avoid gridlock and also to become more productive, because manpower hours are waste and that. And finally, as you know, there's over 600 drains and gullies in the KMA. And what plan, if any, to, one, rehabilitate, two, to maintain?
Yes, sir. Very quickly and in the interest of time. The question, is there any budget to support construction or reconstruction of the gullies? The answer is yes. Based on the assessment of damage that we did post-Melissa, presentation was made to Cabinet, and the government has taken a decision to allocate $5 billion to the NWA. It is our intention to spend about $2 billion of that on gully construction and clearance. Now, again, Sandy Gully is the main gully, but just like the your cardiovascular system, you have the arteries and you have the veins. So for it to work perfectly, not only will we have to look at the main gully, but we also have to look at some of the tributaries. So yes, we do have a plan to look at some of the main gullies as well as the tributaries. Understandably, a provision of $2 billion will not go very far, but we'll try and be as efficient as we can. The question regarding gridlock, again, very quickly, if you examine most of the vehicles caught in the gridlock, what you'll find is that they're individual motor cars carrying one person. I mean, the truth about it, there's no modern city that moves its population around based on individual transport. There has to be some kind of mass transport, and that is as simple as that. We have a lot of cars in Jamaica carrying single persons. Now, we're not a part of the Ministry of Transport, so policy prescription, understandably, will come from that ministry. But, you know, as someone who has interest in the sector, I think the whole issue of mass transit will have to be. We do have plans to expand a number of corridors under what we call the CAPEX program. We recently did Grange Lane in Portmore, and we're now expanding the Helsha Brayton Road. We're dualizing that from 2 lanes to 4 lanes, and that is now under construction. The next corridor that is slated for similar expansion is Arthur Wint Drive down to Tom Redcom, all the way down to South Camp Road. That construction will start in the next financial year. And we also have the corridor from Barbican Road, East Kings House Road, Lady Musgrave Road to Trafalgar Road. So, okay. If you examine, not the bridge, all right. So, and we are also going to expand the bridge on Washington Boulevard, the one about the Sandy Gully, from 2 lanes, which is a constriction, to 3 lanes. That will. Oh, it's in the CapEx program, so we're working through that. And what completes that program is a new entrance into Portmore, which will also ease with the congestion. If you examine our budget for this financial year, if you go back to the start of the financial year, you would have seen a provision that was originally made in the budget for some gully work, as well as the expansion and beautification of a number of the entrances into the city. We had Washington Boulevard as one. We had from the Norman Manley Airport into Kingston as another. We had the Papillon Corridor as another. And we had just started the preliminary engineering works for those. Regrettably, those sums were subsequently reallocated. And so the concepts remain, and the intention to do those works remain, and we will try to see if we can get that back in the next financial year. In terms of, did you ask about drainage? Yeah. Drainage is a big ticket item, as I explained last week when we were here. The functioning of a drain depends on 2 characteristics. A, the capacity of the drain and the condition of the drain. We spend a lot of time talking about cleaning drains, but when you clean a drain, it does expand the capacity. So, and a clean drain remains clean. It's just a transient event. As soon as the rain comes down with how garbage is all over the place, it then floods up. So the drains that we're operating on now were originally designed and constructed 50, 60 years ago based on climate conditions then. What is required is for us to up the ante in terms of the specification for current drain design. The end result of that is more drains, bigger drains, at a significantly higher cost. And the question is, within an urban center that is already well set, to what extent are you going to be able to fit these bigger drains into existing locations? There are other concepts like on-site disposal and so on, and we'll be looking at that. And finally, there is a master drainage plan that was done for the country, funded by the IDB and the government of Jamaica, that speaks to drainage solution in a number of urban centers, Port Maria, Maypen, Kingston and St. Andrew. And the price tag back in about 2014 when it was done was about $1 billion US. Now, understandably, very few countries set out to implement a master drainage plan. Generally, there has to be something that carries it. And what usually carries it is road construction. So whenever you're doing improving the roads, you build in the drainage component into the road construction, as we did with Mandela, as we did with the South Coast Highway, and as we will do for the other corridors that we're going to build. So for example, when we're doing Lady Musgrave Road, we will build the current required drain for that corridor. So we will do for Arthur Wint Drive. So the drainage solution will accompany the road component. So you have the two.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Newcastle breakaway, whether it's a new alignment, a new engineering feature, I am positive that that one will be done. Thank you. I'm also positive that the Yallus-Easington one of three that you referred to is a matter of a bridge on the 55 bridge program. So I can say thank you again, and I know that that does not fit into the comment that you made about rationalization of places or roads or developments. The one I will not speak to with that level of definity is Wakefield to Hardware Gap, even though I have visited it. But looking at it, I have no doubt that those three will be dealt with. So I'm very happy that the policy and the position of the government will flow with these three, and they do not fit with the comment about rationalization. Or maybe I misunderstood.
I'm not in a position to rebut you, member. What we do as technocrats, we give advice to the policymakers, and we take decisions from the policymakers, and then we implement.
And we are also fully aware that if we keep our drains clean and we do what is required, even though some of them may be 10, 20, 30, 40 years old, they will carry more and flow more water and protect our city and towns. So we understand that. Where I want to go now, I want to ask more specifics about the 55 bridge program. Because the truth is, we had expectations that these bridges would have been rolled out faster. It is a long period. The procurement period is what I'm really getting at. Can you speak to the procurement process, what has taken place? Because this has been a major problem for us all. If these 55 bridges were in place, the suffering we're having in all of the rural areas would be a lot less, especially Easington in this case.
Very quickly, Mr. Chairman, and Member Robertson said the procurement process. Let me declare interest. I am a commissioner on the Public Procurement Commission, so I do know a little bit about the procurement process. And the current the current schedule for the bridge, accelerated bridge program, does not have a procurement component. It's a government-to-government project, and so the contractors and the consultants are all part of the agreement. What is now being done is what's called the Public Investment Public Investment Management System. Okay, so as you know, the government of Jamaica has the recurrent side of the budget and it has a capital side of the budget. The law says if there is an expenditure on the capital side of the budget, it has to go through a diagnostic that upon analysis and rational examination, that expenditure is genuinely a capital expenditure. And that is at the gift of the Ministry of Finance. And there's a formula and a template that has to be responded to. And it involves studies, it involves a whole lot of diagnostic. And it is when those diagnostics are completed, and then there's the meeting of the PIB, which is chaired by the Minister of Finance, and it has several cabinet ministers as members. It's a cabinet committee, and the different entities of government have to do a presentation to that committee, and you present and you defend. And when the committee decides that, yes, this program should be admitted to the public sector investment program, it then goes to cabinet, and then from cabinet it gets into the budget, and then you move to implementation. Now, ordinarily, when it gets to cabinet and gets into the PSIP, you then go to procurement, the normal procurement for contracts. However, under the bridge program, because it's a government-to-government program, there is no procurement component. So once, as Mr. Downer outlined, once we are called to Ministry of Finance to defend the proposal, and we are waiting on that call, it would get into the budget, and we hope, and it should start by early next financial year.
Before any other question, I'll take Madam Pierce. She wishes.
Thank you.
Turn your mic on, Madam.
Thank you so much, Chair. And I just want to make an additional comment to what Mr. Hunter would have said about the 5 billion. And noting that this is not enough, I want members to be absolutely clear that this is an initial allocation and that the government is very cognizant of what needs to be done in terms of the drainage and all that in the country. We have a limited pie, and we are doing the best we can with the allocations. And I just want to emphasize that we do know the significant cost that addressing all the issues that we've been discussing here with our road network, with our gullies, and so will take to, to effect the repair. And so it's in installments. I also want to make to emphasize the government's commitment to the Accelerated Bridge Program. Mr. Downer spoke, and he would have said that the concept is already completed. We're just waiting on a date to be considered by the Public Investment Management Committee of Finance, and the technocrats there are well aware that this is a priority for the government. As a matter of fact, the NWA should have said too that the proposal which follows the concept has already been developed. And so once we get the feedback from the concept, this is where we build out and improve that proposal that is already done. So I want us to leave here with a very positive impression, even while admitting that, yes, there are limitations because we don't have endless funds, but aggressive and assertive efforts are being made to address the issues that have been identified.
Thank you, Madam Pierce. That was actually quite necessary. For Mr. Hunter, I have 3 quick questions, Mr. Hunter. Mr. Hunter, fortunately, the constituency of St. Andrew Northwest never got any major damage through Hurricane Melissa. However, as your report stated, Kingston carries a lot of water, and we have some critical drains in the constituency. And there have been some major breakaways in Roampton Drive, off Sunrise Crescent, and off Border Avenue in Havendale, where people's homes about to fall into the gully. And these are established homes, right, with middle-class persons living in them. And the works agents have been there to visit, as per usual, take photographs, as per usual. I just want to know, what am I to tell the residents who have gotten severe damage after the storm about these breakaways? That's 1. 2, Spark. The constituency have been a beneficiary of the Spark program, and we're extremely grateful. Some good work has been done, Addington Drive, Greendale Crescent, and we're now on work order 6. We're doing Topaz in Red Hills. When I called to find out what is happening, work stopped 2-3 days now because there's a water commission pipe that broke. When it's going to start back, nobody knows. If I know a water commission man, right? No, I don't. So I want to know, what is the rate between water commission and the Spark people, so we can be efficient, because there are 2 more working on 2 more in this work order 6 for me. Last question.
Member, at the beginning, I said 2 questions per member. You have given 2, allow somebody else to give 2. And we are not, no, you don't make that decision. Mr. Gordon.
Thank you. We are in a planning deficit, and as we seek to rebuild stronger and better, the NWA should assume some responsibility for our traffic gridlock, because you continue to sanction these multifamily homes without any attention to the road network. And so as we go forward, is there any collaboration with the NWA, NEPA, and the municipalities as to how we redesign, we plan, and we build? Thank you.
Can I answer very quickly? Start with the last question. As Member Gordon well knows, notwithstanding a recommendation made by the NWA, the local planning authority is reposed in the municipalities. So while we support that effort, I don't know if I am as willing to assume that responsibility, carte blanche. However, the presumption, Member Gordon, that a multifamily dwelling would necessarily generate multi-car ownership does not necessarily hold. And the point I'm trying to make early on, I mean, land space is limited, especially in the urban center. That is one. So we're not, and it's a finite amount of land. And so there is a concept that says what's available to us is what is called airspace. So you go up. So it is not unusual in urban centers worldwide for there to be multifamily dwellings and so on. I mean, so that's a normal concept. That's how cities grow and regenerate and so on. The issue is that concepts such as live and work, so you can live upstairs and you work downstairs, there's a whole set of permutations that can be examined to accommodate the population and manage the transportation. And as I said before, I don't know of any urban center worldwide that has grown based on individual ownership of cars, driving to work, picking up kids. If you notice the reduction in traffic when schools are on holiday, you go up to a certain high school on Constant Spring Road for girls. I mean, there are 1,500 students and there are 1,500 cars. So, I mean, there are some things that we have to face. Member Smith, again, as a technocrat, one of the privileges I have is that I can give sound technocratic advice, which may or may not be accepted. But there is an issue of people living right on the gully bank. Gullies are designed and they should have a free space. And the free space should be at least 15 foot from the edge of the gully. Why? Because the gully has to be maintained and equipment has to get down there to be able to maintain the gully. It is no secret that if you look around the city, people live right on the edge of the gully. Or, no, I'm just as a matter of principle, Not only that too, but the gully walls were not designed for the weight of those, because you did say they are substantial homes. Yeah, but the gully walls are not designed to bear the weight of those substantial homes. So I do think, and this idea did not originate with me. I read an article by the now mayor of the Kingston and St. Andrew Municipal Corporation some months ago that raised the issue of habitation proximate to the gullies and so on. But suffice it to say that under the gully reconstruction program that I mentioned, the government does intend to do some work on the gully, both the invert as well as the walls. How far we will go, again, it all depends on funding. But we also have to be careful, even when we rebuild, the use to which these way leaves are put. So you had, and on the Spark program, the NWC is an integral part of the Spark program. As you know, once the roads have been identified for rehabilitation, we send that list to the NWC, and the NWC then decides which one of these roads needs new pipe, and then they do, between themselves and ourselves and the engineers, we do a design for the water network for a particular road, and then we implement. What it is, though, is that the provision in the Spark budget of $5 billion for water supply is what we call a provisional sum. It's a lump sum which the Prime Minister put in there to assist with the program. What we're finding out, a lot of the roads which originally were not categorized as needing new water supply infrastructure, once you start the construction, it turns out that the infrastructure there is old, and you might as well change out the existing pipes. We did redeploy a number of the Spark contractors in the aftermath of Melissa, because by a stroke of luck, on the Spark, we had contractors in every constituency island-wide. So when Melissa came, we had that good fortune of having contractors placed all over the place, and we were able to redeploy them to road clearance. It is our intention to get back to the Spark program 100% early in December, although we have started baby steps towards. But the issue with the water pipe, I give you my number, you give me a call. I know. We'll straighten that out.
Yes, Zonta, thank you for your response. But the homes that I'm referring to are built how they're supposed to be built, more than 15 feet away, right? I'm talking when you go down, all of us have been down Roampton, all the homes on the left-hand side of the road. You know, there's a gully about 20, 25 feet over. That's the gully that is breaking away, and homes are starting to fall, right? So these are not, I never mentioned substantial homes. Those words not what I said, but it's a serious problem, and residents are concerned, and after the recent storm, it has gotten worse. And you said there's a plan, and I have your number, and I'll attempt to call you again. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm going back to the 55 bridge program. And you made reference to two committees. Public Investment Management Committee, which I believe sits in the Ministry of Finance. And you also made reference to a committee, PIP, that sits in Cabinet. Am I correct? It's one and the same. Well, in terms of the Public Investment Management Committee, I would like you to provide the timelines for how long you have placed in front of this committee, your documentation ready for them to deal with it. I would like you to provide the timelines of, and if we have to go through the chair and the clerk to find out when they met, how often they met, how much work is being done, because I am positive, based on my own checks, that this is not an observation. Some of these committees are not meeting as if this is the nation's business. People's lives are at stake. And I would like that information whenever possible, for the next sitting. When did the Public Investment Management Committee have from you your project on the 55? When they met, how often they meet? I don't want to know who sits on it. Because at that point we will decide how policy is being implemented. Thank you.
Just for clarification, okay. So the Public Investment Management Committee, that's a committee of Parliament, of Cabinet, chaired by the Minister of Finance, and it has a number of Cabinet members. It has the chairman of the PIOG and so on. So that's committee at that level. Beneath them, however, is the PIAB, which is the Public Investment Appraisal Board branch, which is the technocratic section within the Ministry of Finance that does the heavy lifting and the analyses and of the different proposals. And when they have finished with their analysis, then they kick it upstairs to the Public Investment Management Committee. So that's the two-tier thing. Right. Right. So it's a two-tier. Right. So what we can give you, member, is just the chronology of all the submissions made to the, and that is the process we follow. We followed that process for the Troy Bridge. That's the process we followed for all the road expansion projects we're doing. So we have been doing that for quite some time.
Members, we are taking the last follow-up question. It is now 23 minutes to 2. We have to give the House staff enough time to carry out what needs to be done, as we understand. So, and notice you have not asked any question, member. So we will re-invite NWA so that you will get some time. And we will take into consideration those who have asked questions already when they come again. Carry out your last follow-up question.
Chairman, so I am making reference to the Public Investment Appraisal Branch housed in the Ministry of Finance. I would like, through the clerk, to know exactly when they meet, when they met, date, who sits, not by name, and how quickly. Because the truth is, these programs are not being implemented on a timely manner. And when you have the passing of hurricanes and you realize that some of these structures could have been built, there was space in the budget, should have been built, should be completed, and people are now suffering, and to hear that these bridges, not built, are allowing people to go without health care, education, you name it, livelihood. It is callous.
We're going to allow Member Azan to ask one question, and you can take both, Sir Hunter, and then we wrap up.
Okay, Chairman, I have many questions, but I'm going to do one now. What time period the NWA have to clean up, a full cleanup, and open up all the roads to a 2-lane, especially our main roads?
So, Chairman, the statistics indicate that within 6 days after the passage of Melissa, we had provided access on over 90% of the thoroughfare. Now, admittedly, some are 2-lane and some are 1-lane. Now, I just want it to be understood, we don't journey from point A to point B to clear just 1 lane. So usually when our crews get out there, there's usually some impediment that prevents us from getting 2 lanes. In a lot of instances, Chairman, the impediments would be like GPS poles, and that's a major impediment, poles and wires, so that's an issue. So to the extent, and we work very closely with JPSCO, so soon as we have that freedom of that infrastructure being removed, then we will convert to 2 lanes, and that is now being done. In other instances, the impediment to getting 2 lanes has to do with perhaps just the topography of the area and the potential for a landslide or something like that. And so the technical people on the ground would make a decision that in the interest of safety, we will just have 1 lane for the time being. But I give you the assurance, member, that right now we have crews working on all the single lanes to convert them into 2 lanes. And that's been done. So as the days go by, we add more to the 2 lanes and we reduce the single lane. But it's like on a case-by-case basis on the ground.
Thank you very much, members. Thank you very much, those persons from the different entities today. We have taken the decision that we will reinvite NWA, PAJ, and Flow because they have some more information to pass to us. Well, as for now, let me say thank you for the information that you have disseminated to us this morning, this afternoon, and we are very grateful. It put us in a sense where we will be able to answer some of the questions that the residents that we are elected to represent will ask, and we will take questions from them to pose to you further. At this time, we are asking you that you are good to go. You are excused at this time. Madam Pierce, thanks for coming. We will be in dialogue. Notice I didn't ask any question, and I am from one of the hardest hitting parish, but I will rest for now. I wouldn't tell you. Some members, we are wrapping up now, members. Members, the meeting are not yet, the meeting is not yet over. Some members, yes, sir. So now that we are placed in a position that requires us to ask more questions and to get more information, our next date is looking at the 9th of December. Yes, member.
Chairman, we can't have so many entities on the same day.
Sorry?
We can't have so many different agencies on the same day because you see what happened today.
No.
You know, oh, you're late. Let me explain what happened today, Chairman. Chairman, we need more time to question these entities, Chairman. Like, for example, Mr. Edwards from NRAP, basically, I had questions for him, but I couldn't waste time with him knowing that I needed some questions for NWA. So we can't have more than 2, maximum 3 a day, Chairman.
And I also understand that I was late today, but I will say to you that you're new. So the mere fact that you're new, you will learn as you go along. What we'll do, we'll set the date for the 9th of, if it is okay with the members, the 9th of December. The problem we're having is that if we're going to be asking some of the, part of the problem is that myself as an Witter, we are from out of town. It poses some amount of problem to spend 2 days. You understand me? So if we get the Tuesday meeting, but the ninth is tentative, and if, yes, it is a Tuesday. If we use it wisely, then we can have. And what we'll do, yes, we look at the number of entities coming. So what we're looking on now is solid waste, the municipal corporations, and JPSCO, if that is okay with us. Who are we going to drop? No, who are we going to drop from the 3 to take land agency? NWA will be coming at a later date, not the 9th. So to remove MCs, give MC a date for themselves. NLA, Solid Waste, and JPSCO for the 9th. Sorry? So the three going forward are JPSCO, Solid Waste, and land agencies. So we'll write to them and give them the proposed date. The other three that we want to re-invite, Flow, NWA, PAJ, we will take them at a later date. The fact we don't know when we go off for the Christmas break, and so we don't want to preempt a date for beyond the 9th. Sorry? We won't go beyond the 9th. All right? So members, if there are any other business, if there are no other business, we have set the date for the next meeting. I now ask that somebody move by member Smith, new member Smith, seconded by new member Gordon. This meeting now stands adjourned.
You sure this is okay?
Relationships can get complicated.
You've avoided seeing me now for almost a year. But you still take my calls. It simply means you're not over me yet.
Okay.
Some relationships stay complicated.
I am done taking it easy, Danny. I've wasted a lot of my time with you. You know what? Let me just silence this altogether.
It's done, isn't it?
What do you expect from me, Stanley?
Just forgive